Good morning and welcome back to St Albans, and a happy new year as well. It's 2022, which is crazy. This is our first video that we'll be publishing in 2022, and I hope you had a lovely Christmas and a good new year, whatever you were doing, and I hope it was nice and relaxed and you got to do all the things that you wanted to do. We hosted Christmas this year for the first time, so our families got to meet, which is amazing. It was meant to happen the year before, but it didn't for obvious reasons, so we're really happy that we were able to do it this year. And actually it was one of my favourite Christmases of all time. I really loved it, and I hope we get to do it again in the future. But as you can see, today I am talking to you from within a shed, and this is our brand new shed on plot 12, and this video is going to be about all the things that we needed to do to get plot 12 ready to be able to put this together and put the base down. So we'll be running through us taking out the raspberry cane hedge, the reinstating the shed path down the side of the plot that had lots of stuff growing in it from the last plot holder, moving the greenhouse, taking down the old shed that was behind this, and then laying the base. And also we'll see a little bit of us putting it together, although we still have quite a lot to do. We haven't done the windows, we haven't painted it, we haven't actually felted the roof yet. There's just some plastic on top to keep the water out, because it's just not been nice. This is the first sunny day that we've had in about 3 weeks, maybe 2 or 3 weeks. The first fully sunny day. There's been a few days where there's been a bit of sun here and there, maybe at the morning and maybe just as the sun was setting, but there hasn't been a full day of sunshine for weeks, so this is absolutely lovely. And yeah, it's just been too wet, and they are still soaking wet. So once that's all dried out, we'll be able to do the felt, but I'm not sure that's going to happen anytime soon, really, unless we get a few more days like this, which is lovely. But yeah, let's look at some of the things that we needed to do to get this plot ready for the shed. So the very first job that we needed to do to be able to get plot 12 ready for the new shed was to take out this raspberry cane hedge, which divides the plot into two halves horizontally. We wanted to move it because this is where the greenhouse is going to go, depending on which greenhouse we use. We're not sure yet, but one of them will go in this spot here. We'd already taken out about half of the hedge, but we got stuck a little bit here because this is where some gooseberry bushes are, where Sergio is standing now. We figured out eventually that the best way to take them out is to trim it right back, because they've got a lot of grass and weeds growing in them. They're quite mature bushes. And then you dig around it. After you've cut the branches back, you dig around it and try and loosen the soil a bit and find where the really thick taproot is that joins the soil. They're usually right in the center, and they are really big, especially on these mature ones. And then you get some loppers and you shove it into the ground. You can use your spade as a guide for that. I found that much easier to do it that way. And then you cut the taproot or the taproots if there's more than one, and eventually then you'll find that you can just pull out the gooseberry bush. I don't think they're very salvageable at that point, and so we ended up just burning them. We don't really like gooseberries anyway, so it's not too sad for us, although they were quite mature, as I say, so a bit of a shame to lose them that way. But they were right in the way and very difficult to maintain because they were just full of grass and weeds. There was a blackberry bush as well, which was absolutely delicious during summer, but I was very silly and I didn't mark it. I think it's where I'm standing now, but I didn't mark it, and obviously once all the leaves and berries are off, they all look very similar. So I'm hoping I managed to figure out which one it was. We did save quite a few, and we will give a couple of the raspberry canes away as well. But we'll hopefully be able to keep some of them and reuse them in more sensible places that doesn't just divide the plot into two halves. And then you'll also see in a moment that this isn't all of the raspberry canes. There was a few more in the path which we're going to reinstate just behind where the camera is right now. And that stops us from being able to reinstate the path, which is needed really for us and our plot neighbours, which isn't necessarily something that we had to do to get plot 12 ready for the shed, but it really did help us find where the centre of the plot is, and it was just a nice thing to do to kind of get the plot ready. And these are the remainder of the raspberry canes that I was saying about. So you can see on the right hand side there, that's just where we were. That's the ones we were just taking out. And these ones are the remaining ones that are in what's going to be the reinstated shed path between plot 11 and plot 12. There should really be a path between each set of plots, because it really helps define where the edge of the plot is. You don't have to worry about encroaching on space or growing into anybody's plots, and obviously it's just the responsibility of both sides to keep it maintained. There is already a path between plot 12 and plot 13, so we're just reinstating this one here. There was also some bean structures further down the path towards the front of the plot as well when we took it over. We took those out pretty quickly. There was a lot of weeds growing over it, and it couldn't have been very good for our plot neighbours. And this will help, hopefully, everybody long term, because not only will it be less weedy for everybody, but it also makes it much easier for everybody to get up and down with a wheelbarrow and that kind of thing. And also they can get better access to their plot without having to go through the middle of their plot. We almost definitely won't get out all of these raspberry canes, so the ground isn't great anyway, and they'll probably pop back up, but hopefully we'll get a bit of help maintaining it from our plot neighbours, and it will just be a nice path for everybody to use. And hopefully the grass will grow back at some point as well, if we can keep it nice, because at the moment it's a bit gross. There's not very good grass there, there's quite a lot of weeds, it's a bit bumpy where we've been taking out some of the raspberry canes and where they've been growing. Once all the raspberry canes are out, the only thing left for us to do for the path was to figure out how much space to leave around the shared water trough, because it's not just for us, it is for everybody in the vicinity to use. So we needed to make sure we left enough space around it for people to use it and for us to be able to get a wheelbarrow around too. And then we just measured the path on the other side of plot 12, between 12 and 13, and it turned out to be about 75 centimetres, which is roughly the width of the water trough as well, which is quite nice. So we just ran a peg line from around about where we wanted to start the path, right to the back of plot 12, and then made sure that it was 75 centimetres between each side, which then helped us figure out exactly where the edge of the path was going to be, which then helped us find the centre of the plot to put the shed base into. So the next job for us was to move the greenhouse. It turned out this wasn't actually in the way, but we still wanted to move it into the middle of the plot anyway, and I would rather have the space completely clear when we're trying to put a shed together, so it was still worthwhile doing. So the first thing we needed to do was to just clear the rubbish that was around it. There was a lot of stuff that we kind of dumped there from when we sorted through a lot of the stuff when we took over the plot, so I needed to clear that, move that to the back, and then it was just a case of going around and removing all of the clips from the glass and just making sure to try and get out as much glass as possible without breaking it. I actually only broke about 2 pieces of glass, I think, which was in the roof, and it was just because it was so mossy and stuck to the rubber that when I tried to remove the clips, it shattered a couple of bits of glass. But it's actually not a problem, because on plot 12 we ended up inheriting a lot of spare glass, a little bit too much spare glass. So we won't have an issue replacing any of this glass if we need to, but we will need to cut some of it because some of the panes are a different size. So if you look at the 2 end columns compared to the 2 middle columns where I was just taking out the glass, they're slightly narrower, they're not a standard size, so we may end up needing to cut some glass anyway. And the previous plot holder kind of bodged a few of these panes in. They're all varying sizes, some are really tiny and stuff. So when we do put the glass back in this, we'll try and do it a little bit tidier and maybe do it in a way that is quite consistent as you put the glass back in. We're not actually 100% sure if we're going to be using this greenhouse on plot 12 or if we're going to move the big greenhouse from plot 79, which is currently flooded, around onto plot 12 in its place into the centre of this plot, which is a really nice size, and it's just a bit of a big job to move it around. There's 80 something panes of glass in it, and it's not so bad taking them out. It doesn't take too long to take them out. It's more the carrying them around to literally the other corner of the site. It is going to be a bit of a long job, and we have quite a few long jobs ahead of us. If we want to move that, then that's going to take a while. And if we want to move the compost bins, which I think we do because currently they're also flooded and they're just sitting there soaking up water and not being very useful, then we're probably going to want to move those too at some point. But we also don't want to spend the whole of this season moving stuff. We had a pretty crappy season last year because we were spending a lot of time clearing this plot of lots of rubbish and trying to get it ready. We did grow some stuff in it, but not a lot. And then plot 79 was flooded right up until summer, and then a lot of summer was spent trying to just get it back up to scratch again and make it a usable plot.
Okay, it is 3:10. The sun has almost completely set behind the trees, although there's another 50 minutes or so before sunset. It's going to start to get too dark soon to be able to record. So I think that's it for today, and I'll pick this up again tomorrow.
The next day I was blessed with some more lovely weather, so I came back down to the plot to finish the job. And it didn't take that much longer actually. The rest of the panes were quite easy to get out, apart from a few of the roof ones, which was where I broke a couple of them, and a few of them were just so stuck that I ended up having to do them a bit of a weird way. But I did get them all out eventually, including the one in the window, which I had to take apart to do. You can see that the greenhouse is on a base of railway sleepers, and we were really hoping to reuse these, but unfortunately because of where the greenhouse was situated towards the back, they were quite rotten, and I don't think we'll be able to reuse them. We might be able to reuse them somewhere else though. And then we needed to decouple the greenhouse frame from the sleepers, which was actually quite difficult. We ended up needing to use a crowbar because a lot of the nails and stuff that we used were all broken and rusted and stuff, and we were just really struggling to get them out. So we ended up having to resort to a crowbar, and then we just moved it into the middle of the plot. And we were actually quite lucky that we managed to get it pretty much smack bang in the middle first time. It only needed slight tweaking, which is quite impressive, I think. And then once the greenhouse frame was moved, I just spent a little bit of time clearing out some of the plastic that had accumulated. I think the greenhouse had been there for quite some time. There was lots of plant labels, some nylon string, lots of stuff like that. So I just wanted to spend some time clearing it out while we had good access to it and before it got spread out across the plot. And the second to last and second to worst job to do was to take apart the old remaining sheds. So there were 3 sheds here, but the other 2 sheds, they were made of wood, just old doors and stuff, and they were really easy to dismantle. This one, however, took us absolutely ages. It was put together a little bit too well, a little bit too smart, and because it's been there for so long, the metal that was used to put it together, or the bolts and stuff, they were all rusted and impossible to take off. So they were kind of put together using this kind of hook system. So there was a hook through the corrugated metal and over the bar at the back or on the inside, and then a nut was added to the outside, which then kept the metal in place. So if you could take the nut off, it would be absolutely fine, but because we couldn't, it was basically impossible to take it off. We tried so many things. We tried taking a crowbar to it, we tried taking a sledgehammer to it, we tried breaking the metal. Nothing really helped. In fact, some things made it a little bit worse. And it turned out the only thing that really worked was getting a screwdriver. Thankfully, there was a really sturdy screwdriver in that orange toolbox you can see there. And we ended up using that to kind of prise open the hooks from the inside. There were a few that came out okay, so we didn't need to do that. But as we got towards the end, there was a few that just would not budge. And I ended up getting really angry and just using brute force to kind of prise the hooks off of the bars. With a lot of noise, and I feel really bad because there was our plot neighbour down, and I think she came down for some peace and quiet, and there was us making lots of noise with a metal shed trying to dismantle it. So if you're watching this, I just want to apologise to you, and I know that it's annoying. We won't be doing that all the time. We just needed to get it done today. I also feel bad because there was a small family of ladybirds just kind of hibernating in the between the corrugated metal and the bars, and I reckon that's because it gets quite hot there, and they were probably soaking up some of the heat from the metal. But hopefully they found somewhere else to live now because we definitely displaced them, and I feel really bad about it. So this is where we started to get a bit stuck, and we really slowed down, and we're getting really frustrated and trying to start using other ideas like crowbars and stuff before we figured out the screwdriver trick. We also tried taking apart the actual frame rather than taking off the panels, but that was impossible. It's put together really well apart from being a bit rusted, and the bolts are just too rusted sharp. We just couldn't get them to budge even slightly, so that was out of the question. So we were then basically just going around with a screwdriver, desperately trying to push off the last of it. This was, I think, before the last weekend before the shed got delivered. So we really wanted to get this done so that we just had a weekend to be able to put the shed base down without any distractions or anything in the way.
Okay, that was awful, but we got there. We're not really sure exactly what to do with the frame though, because it is very well put together and it's rusted shut. It's rusted closed, we can't get any of the bolts off, which is why we struggled so much to get the kind of hook things off of the frame, which is what was holding the corrugated metal on. So I think we're gonna have to see if we can get someone to come down with an angle grinder or something, because we don't have one. Maybe a petrol angle grinder or something, I don't know how it works. So I might take a photo of it and put it online and see if someone wants to take the job to cut it up into pieces. If not, we can either reuse the frame. So there's a bar that hits your head, which makes it difficult to use as like a seating area or something unless we raise it up, which is a bit annoying. Or we could put it right at the back and then we could put like a frame around it. We could use it as a butterfly cage to keep the butterflies out or the birds out. I'm sure we can use it, but I don't really want to keep it because it's just kind of going to get in the way. But at least now the sides are off, we can move it all to the back, out of the way, ready to lay the base for the greenhouse, which is the next job.
And then on to the worst job by far, which was laying the base. So we first just marked out roughly where we wanted the base to go, and then we used a point of reference as the center of the plot to make sure that the front of the base is parallel with the front of the plot, because we want everything nice and symmetrical and centered. So we used a piece of string to do that, running from the center of the plot. And then we just started laying the slabs. So all of these slabs were reclaimed from plot 12, which was really nice. We didn't have to buy any more, but it did mean that they were all different sizes. A few were broken and some had concrete underneath as well, which made them really difficult to level. But it was worth it because we didn't have to spend any money on the base, which was really good. And then once we'd kind of made sure that that is exactly where we wanted the base to go, we then started leveling the area. So we used some rough sand for this and some compost, which helped us level it because it was quite uneven and we had to take out a lot of grass and stuff. And then we popped the slabs back down, and then it was just a case of going round and round, trying to make sure that they were as level as possible, and using a really big piece of wood that was running diagonally and across the base to make sure that it was completely flat from one end to the other. And by going round and round, it ended up looking pretty good, but it did mean that I couldn't do much filming because it was absolutely disgusting weather. It was tipping it down all day and I got so muddy, and it was really, really difficult work, and I lost all my energy by the end of the day. But it was worth doing because it ended up being quite a decent base for the shed to be on. And also thank you to Sergio for bringing down some stollen, which was absolutely delicious for lunch because it was very close to Christmas by this point. Delicious.
Well, I've just had a phone call from the shed people to say that they are delivering the shed at 6:30 in the morning tomorrow morning, which is very early for us to be coming down and making sure that the gate is open and that we can receive the delivery okay. So since the sun is setting, it's just gone behind the trees over there. I think that's all I'm going to get time for today. And also my energy levels have depleted massively, carrying these slabs around and moving them around, lifting them up and putting them back down again, trying to level it. So it's going round and round, trying to level it. And also I'm absolutely filthy. This is the dirtiest I've ever been at the allotment, and I feel disgusting and I want to go home. So I'll show you quickly what I've got done. I'm not super happy with it, but it's good enough for the allotment. If this was at home, then I don't think it would be good enough. You can see there's a few lumps and bumps. Some of these were already broken, and actually that was really helpful because it gave us kind of a handle to get into the middle ones to lift them up, to keep re-leveling it as we were going round. That one broke just at the end, just as I was finishing, and that one broke and I replaced it earlier. But it's okay, it's pretty level. So I was using that big bit of wood there to kind of check all the way along whether it's level and whether there's any big gaps underneath the wood that needed filling and stuff. And then at the end, to try and clean up some of the mud, I brushed it, and then I brushed in some sand as well that we have here, so which makes it look a lot nicer actually. But I do also have to keep reminding myself that it's just going to be underneath a shed and we're not really going to see it. But you can see here it's just so muddy. It's been like a mud pit here today, and it has been an absolute chore to get this done. I've been here since about 10 a.m. Trying to get this done, and it's now 3:30, so I've been here for a very long time. It's been raining, it's been windy, it's been cold, and I am pretty done with it. So I'm hoping actually that this is good enough. There shouldn't be any major gaps that could cause a problem for the floor, and no vermin should be able to get in either, hopefully. So I'm hoping this is good enough, but it's just going to have to do because that's all we've got time for. And obviously, just as the sun is setting and just as I finish, it stops raining and we have blue skies. St Albans. It's just gone 6 in the morning. I'm very tired. I didn't sleep very well at all last night. I kept panicking that the shed wasn't going to be delivered or something was going to go wrong. So I've been up since about 5. I'm almost at the plot now, almost at the site. They just called actually to say that they're going to be about half an hour late, so I've got a little bit of time to get stuff ready. It feels really dodgy though going to the allotment at this time in the morning. I'm going to have to be there with a torch and I'm going to look like the people that were breaking in the other day. But it is legit. I've got a key to get in and yeah, just to get everything ready. I've got a few bits of tarp or something to lay down. It's very frosty this morning, so actually it shouldn't be too muddy, but obviously we don't want to get the shed too muddy before we even put it together, and we're going to need to lay it on the ground first. So I've got some plastic sheets to put on the ground, so I'm going to sort all that out and try and get that ready. It's pretty cold, but yeah, hopefully once this is done, we won't have to come down to the plot this early in the morning, at least while it's dark anyway. I am looking forward to longer days. So although I have a torch with me, to look a little bit less suspect, I've nabbed one of the solar powered LED light bulbs that we have from plot 79, just hung it on the greenhouse, which hasn't got any glass in at the minute. But yeah, it's lighting up this end okay actually, enough to be able to see what we're doing. It doesn't show up very well on the camera, but they're pretty good, you know. I think it cost like £6 on Amazon. It's helping immensely today, and yeah, hopefully it makes me look a little bit more legit. Well, the shed's here, that's exciting. He's just taking it off the lorry now. I just started carrying a few bits. It's plot 12. Plot 12 is far from the gate. Very exciting. I'm not going to record the dude delivering though, because I don't think he probably wants to be on YouTube. Exciting. Excuse the fluffy jumper, but this is what I wore, thinking it was going to be absolutely freezing, and I ended up being roasting hot. But we're done. Well, we're not done. We've moved it. We've moved it from the site entrance to the site, to the plot. Whew, I'm out of breath. And now all we need to do is put it together. But it's completely calm at the moment, but it's meant to be a storm later. And there's a weather warning of wind, so not 100% sure if we're going to get it done today. And I imagine that means it's probably going to rain as well. But I'd like to get some of it done today. The good news is the base fits perfectly on the base that I put, so the floor of the shed fits perfectly on the base that I put together yesterday, which is cool. And yeah, next step is to put it together.
Because I'm really impatient, I ended up starting to put the shed together by myself, which I don't recommend, but I used a wheelbarrow full of concrete to rest the back up against, and used some blocks of concrete on the inside to stop it flapping about in the wind. And then I started to attach the sides, firstly by adding clamps so that it wasn't flapping about in the wind, and then I screwed them in. You can see just how wet that wood is as well, which is why I wanted to put it together, but we were both a little bit too busy to do it together at the same time. So I ended up doing it on my own. I really don't recommend it. It was really risky and I could have damaged the shed, but it did work out okay in this case and meant it got the wood off of the wet floor. And also the roof felt that we got. So we did start to do the roof felt, but it ripped as soon as we touched it basically, and it wasn't good enough. So we did buy some more, and it's basically just been damp ever since then. So we've covered the roof in 2 bits of plastic, one lengthways and then one over the top to kind of keep the water out of the windows, which we also still need to do. But it just protects the OSB a little bit, and more importantly, makes the roof watertight for us. There we go. That's all the jobs we needed to get done to get plot 12 ready for the new shed. There's still a lot that we need to do, so apart from doing the windows and felting the roof, internally we want to add a couple of benches. So we want to add a bench down the side here, and then a nice big one at the back where we can do some potting up and making food and stuff. And then this wall, which doesn't have a window on it, we want to like have that where all of our tools go, so maybe some pegboard or something like that as well. And we want to paint the whole thing, at least on the outside, with the same paint that they use in Scandinavia, with that red paint that's a byproduct of copper mining or something like that, which is really nice. And then yeah, we need to do something with the floor as well, because the floor is going to get disgusting at the moment. We just have some weed membrane down to stop the mud and stop the water a little bit. And the most important job really is to get the roof felted, but
Like I say, it's just been a little bit too wet to do that. So I don't know when it's going to happen. It's fine at the moment though with the plastic that we've got over the roof and over the window. It's doing a good enough job for now. We just have to wait for some slightly nicer days and then we can crack on with it. But we can do the inside and the benches and stuff that we're planning to make. We're not planning to make them permanent, so I'm hoping we can get away with minimal screwing into the actual frame of the shed so that we can just take them in and out very easily, and maybe even build some cupboards around them or something as well to give us some better storage, because at the moment it is an absolute state in here. There's a lot of stuff hanging around, just like the roof felt and stuff is just kind of piled up and not in a very good place. But that's it for today, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you had a really good new year. So from me, Sergio and Poppy, take the very best of care, and we'll see you again soon.